Hello, everybody. It is Badger Wild, and we are back with the Space Engineers ship classes video. This time we are talking about one of the most misunderstood ship classes I think you could get into besides Star Wars' ISD. But before we get into the video, if y'all could be so kind, if you enjoy this content, be sure to hit that like button. Leave me a comment telling me what you think about the current video, and as always, if you're new, subscribe to the channel. We always love y'all here, love new people coming on the channel, and don't forget to check us out on Rumble. There's a link down in the description, as well as a subscribe star for $1 a month. You can basically, the subscribe star is pretty much a tips jar at this point. If you guys want to send me something, you're more than welcome to do it. It helps out. Anyway, back to the video. Today we are learning and figuring out one of the most misunderstood ships, in my opinion, or the most misunderstood ship classes, and that is the assault ship. This is the last of the medium weight ships, and they are 9 times out of 10 this is going to be the biggest of the medium weight ships. IWL lore, at least in Iron Wolf Legion fleet, the assault ship, because a frigate and destroyer is somewhere between 35 to like 60 blocks long, that means this would probably hit around 60 blocks maximum, and there's a reason for that. What I've got here, probably the only class that is actually named that would come even close to it. These are probably the only classes that are going to, they're the only examples I can find on the Steam Workshop that come that close. And you'll understand why when I explain this. So, short history lesson. The reason why these things look like carriers is because the United States at one point upgraded its carriers to super carriers. And so we upgraded to the Nimitz class. We still ran light carriers, but there was a lot of older light carrier models. We had all these design ideas for light carriers, and we were trying to figure out what to do with them. And so we realized we need something to assault an island with besides boats and alligator ships, or alligator boats and other craft, and like small landing boats and Zodiacs like the Marines were using. There's a lot of other options to sending guys in, but the best way would be just to send in an aircraft carrier that had some amphibious weaponry, like amphibious assault vehicles, amphibious tanks, things like that, and also have the ability to defend itself. And so this is where the American version of the, I believe it's called the America class, or the Freedom class, I believe is what it is. Japan, we've talked about Japan's neat little ship that they've got. It's basically an assault ship is what it is, but they can't call it that because an assault ship is technically a carrier. Now, what makes an assault ship different from a carrier? A dedicated carrier, as we know it in the modern era, mostly runs aircraft. It is a floating airport, and its primary weapon is its aircraft. It will have some point defense systems, maybe a missile, whereas a modern assault ship will have some cannons on board. They'll have CWIS guns, but they will also have some medium to long range ship cannons to provide support for the landing craft that take off. Now, the reason why we have these examples here is because they're kind of great examples of how these ships should operate, but the principle is basically the same. We've got the first ship here. If y'all want to know anything about these, or you want me to do an in-depth tour of these ships, or any of the ships in this series, by the way, I kept all the ships saved, so if y'all want me to review any of these vessels, just ask me in the comments, and I'll go ahead and do a review of each one of these ships individually. Also, I'll put a link in the description to where these are in that video if it's requested. But you have this first one, which is technically a carrier. It's not the biggest carrier of the fleet, but you can see we've got doors on the side here. This would be a great assault ship for dealing with space stations and asteroids and things of that nature because of the actual nature of how this thing is built and designed. There are no subgrids to this whatsoever. You could, however, build yourself a nice little ramp, take vehicles off of and put them back on. The thing is, you could put a couple of ships on top, a couple of aircraft or spacecraft for, you know, dogfighting and stuff. And then you could have a couple of drop ships inside that troops could jump into and just start launching out the front end and out the sides, begin taking on. Now, I want to do this and segue into what is how you should view the assault ship. It's more along the lines of how you should view space with a naval doctrine. Instead of islands, you have asteroids, planetoids, and planets. And instead of the sea, you have space. The purpose of the assault ship is to either take a force to an area so they can commence a landing, or to basically run itself aground so everything can just pull out of the ship and go in. Think alligator boats back in World War II, and you see the scenes where the guys are coming in the alligator boats and they hit the beach and the front drops and then everyone pours out. These are just massive versions of this with air support attached to them. Heading going on over, we have a Gozanti class cruiser. Yeah, we have this. It's considered a cruiser in Star Wars. One of these days I'm going to have to do a video explaining Star Wars ship naming, because it's not that Star Wars gets it wrong, it's that Star Wars has a whole bunch of different classes that have to be covered in their own videos. But you can see here, you've got a basic design here. It has weapons, it has guns. And that's another thing. If you're going to have an assault ship, it has to be atmospheric capable. You have to be able to take this thing into an atmosphere, which this one you can't, but this one here could go into an atmosphere. It's got locking collars so that someone can jump down into like a TIE fighter or a walker or something, and then it could be disconnected and dropped onto the battlefield, and then it can take off. You also have a small hangar bay here. You could drop a few ships at the bottom, a couple fighters. It solves the idea of an assault carrier or an assault ship. And like I said, the problem with the assault ship, and this is why it's so hard to find one, because the default concept of an assault ship, and I blame media for this, not movies, I blame news media for this, because one of their favorite words to make something sound scary is assault. So everyone has this mentality of assault means big gun. And so if you type an assault ship in Space Engineers, you're going to get a bunch of ships that are basically destroyers, or like heavy, brutal destroyers. And that's like I said, this is what the problem is with the assault ship. The assault ship should be multi-atmospheric. It should be able to go planet and inside of an atmosphere. It should be able to operate quite efficiently anywhere. The purpose of it is to get troops to the ground. If it can't get troops to the ground, it's probably not going to be an assault ship at all. It doesn't mean big gun. It means, hey, I'm bringing a whole can of whoop ass. That's the difference here. So, yeah, we've got this other one here, which is more of a traditional carrier. This one you could load several fighters on board. You can have a bunch of fighters on board. And it appears to have a design in which it can actually somewhat land, I think, onto an area. Like I said, this is the problem with the assault ship. It is probably the most difficult one to give an example. I'm just grabbing ships that are the closest to it. The assault ship, like I said, it will have cannons. Probably remote missiles are the best things you could put on one of these things, because then you can use a remote missile to take out key structures, defensive systems. Say they've got like a turret that's causing a lot of problems, you can just send a missile out and take care of it. You could load up a bunch of drones on top of here. You could have your boys down the bottom in some ground vehicles like tanks and armor personnel carriers, small scout units, things like that. Everything necessary to take a position. Or you could just have some heavy drop ships and maybe a bomber or two in here and assault a space station with this thing. But it is going to maintain itself as much of a carrier. This is why when I build fighter designs, I have planned on using assault ships with the IWL uses a lot of assault ships. They have like one main carrier, but they use mostly a lot of assault ships to maintain positions. You know, if they need like fighter escorts and stuff, you'll have one destroyer, one or two frigates, and an assault ship to provide, you know, that manpower you need. Because at the end of the day, you may have tanks, you may have jets, but it's the human being that goes in there and takes the position. And like I said, one of the things I do with my ships, my fighters, is I will try to put a connector pointing up and on the bottom, because the idea of an assault ship that I've had is adding a secondary bay on the side of the ship so that I can not only put fighters on top on connectors, I can undersling them on the bottom on connectors. And then pilots can just jump right into them and then fly off. So that's kind of the concept. But yeah, that's kind of how the assault ship works. It is technically a small carrier, but it does a lot more than a carrier. It's complicated a bit on how it operates. It's basically a ship that goes in and takes positions. Once that happens, there are other options you can have with the assault ship. The assault ship could also become a forward operating base for a landing force. They also have a pretty decent supply. Some of them can have like pretty decent supplies of ammunition, fuel. So you could have a ship that once it docks onto an island or lands there, it suddenly becomes a quote-unquote harbor. Basically, you could hook hook up like a logistical frigate, and then other frigates could use the same piping system. They could come in, latch on, and it becomes kind of like a harbor for other ships to engage on. So you can maintain your ships on the ground a lot more efficiently. Why do I think you don't see a lot of assault ships, even though there are examples in real life about them? Mostly because an assault ship basically requires an army. How would I build an assault ship in Space Engineers? A lot of drones. A lot of hover drones, a lot of flying drones. This would just be something that you would drop onto the ground, have a couple Marines, probably about 10 or probably like 5 or 6 of your buddies. One guy gets on the ground, drops this thing, unloads all the ramps, and then you have hover drones pop out and attack, and you have actual flying drones pop out and attack, and then the guy on the ship can then support the ground forces while his buddies, who are the special operations team, go in. So your player characters be special operations. Like I said, depending on how big you want your frigates or destroyer classes, this is probably going to be the ship that maxes out the size. So at 60, I can't believe it's either 40 or 60 blocks long. I can't remember. Probably 45. I don't know. But this ship will max out the entire distance, and then you will have just a large box floating through space with a whole bunch of hardware inside and the ability to fight targets at distance. So yeah, it doesn't go too heavy. It should be able to defend itself from fighters fairly efficiently, but it's not going to be able to attack other ships. Its fighters are going to do all that. Its bombers are going to do all that. The drop ships are going to do all that as they take troops in. The assault ship is not going to do that. It's not a big gun ship. That's a destroyer. This is an assault ship. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it informative. Hope it helps you build your fleet. And as always, I'd like to thank you all for watching. And remember, if you want to help support the channel, the easiest way to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. And check me out on Rumble. If you want to go a little bit more, there is a Subscribestar in the description. It is basically a tip jar, $1. And it's $1 because that's as low as I can go. Subscribestar won't let me put it down to like 50 cents or something. So trust me, I've tried. So anyway, it's just $1. If you guys want to do it, it's not required, but it does help. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, I am Badger Wild saying stay safe, stay frosty. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye for now.